Hi everyone, my name is Fernando Morquecho. My artist for the final side, Twombly. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name correctly, but I know he's a post-war American artist and from the modernist period. I hope you enjoy the presentation, and here we go. So, just a quick background on him. He's an American painter. He also did sculptures, and he painted a lot of different types of work, and we'll get into that in a little bit. He was born in April 25th of 1928 in Lexington, Virginia, and he actually died not too recently ago. I believe it was 2002 or so that he barely died. So he was around for a while, influencing our American culture and painting. He liked to illustrate his work in a lot of different ways. Let's go to the next slide. Just to show you that he was kind of a big artist. He has a lot of collections all around the world. He has a large collection in the Museum of Modern Arts in New York City, and the Musée de Louvre in Paris, France. And he was actually featured in, I believe it was the Houston Museum of Fine Arts here in Houston, Texas. More facts about him: he was involved with art early on in his childhood, I believe since the age of 12. At the age of 12, he actually began taking private lessons from many famous artists from that period, who focus in the modern period. Later on, he served in the army as a cryptographer, which is kind of like our modern day firewall to a computer. He would mass communication messages, so I guess you could see it as somewhat kind of an art. I'm not sure, but let's go to the next slide. So he was kind of infatuated with mythological figures, with Zeus and all of those Greek gods. He learned from a lot of different types of artists back in his day. So for the first 20, 30 years or so, in school, he moved along from different colleges, from Georgia all the way to Boston, Massachusetts. He involved himself with a lot of different painters all around the world. Also, most of them were dealing with expressionism, and specifically in abstract expressionism. He One of his most biggest influencers was Ben Shahn. He was a Lithuanian artist who actually focused on social realism. And then he got into abstract painting from an American painter named Franz Klein. So, from all of this different people that he learned from, he involved himself in different styles of art, from calligraphy type artwork to large canvases, and then some of his work actually looks like scribble, which is what it's actually called. So, what is calligraphic art? Um, Calligraphic art is a visual art related to writing, usually done with just one stroke. That example right there is actually a cat, but inside of it is a lot of Arabic writing, which actually has a meaning to it. I don't know Arabic, and I couldn't exactly find a meaning of what it was, but that's kind of what the message back then when that painting was created was. So this art focused on gestural writing, and it was almost seen as tribal art. It's a form of abstraction, and it's just a way to show something, which is really what art is. So calligraphy itself is actually Greek. It comes from the word kaios, which interprets to beauty. Modern calligraphy is often used just more for a pleasure to the eye, as in back in the day it was used to depict messages in artwork, such as the previous artwork in the previous slide. I mean, so here's one of his calligraphy paintings. This is called a blackboard painting. It kind of reminds me of like my childhood days when we used to have blackboards, and they used to make us do these designs with our wrists to make sure that we would be on the right track to be painting correctly. They didn't really work out for me, but That's what it reminds me of. But to him, this interprets the message with his. He actually went through a phase where he would put these dark canvases out like this, and he would just stretch out many, many white lines across the whole entire dark canvas. And it was just a way of him to express himself at that time in that movement. And it's just a way for them to convey what they're viewing. So more on the black wall painting, this is something that he personally said about it. He said graffiti is linear and is done with a pencil, and it's like writing on walls. But in my painting, it's more lyrical. So he's really just interpreting something that he's feeling, and it's something. It's abstract enough to where you can interpret it as your own, in your own way. So some of the techniques that were used in his work in calligraphy specifically, so he used lines, he used implied lines, vertical lines, diagonal lines, and some of the later work you'll see sharp and jagged edges, and you saw the dancing curving lines. So lines have many uses in art. So like I said, it can represent mood, and many you'll see in the next slide some of the different aggression, passive type things you can see in. So here's two works from different artists from different periods. The lines and the shades use different moods in them. You can see on the left, the by MC Escher, the Sky and Water, and this is something that I actually saw a lot in psychology. And then the next one is Ginger by Kiki Smith, and you can see the tone of the cat with the dark lines, and you can see its fur very neatly played out. He later on began to work on canvases. He moved away from a bit from paintings themselves, and so canvases are created with these heavy-duty plain woven fabrics. Sometimes they can be huge, sometimes they can be small. As you can see, you can use them for sails, tents, marquees, backpacks, anything really. Uh, it was highly popular at the time, and it still is all around the world. And it's just an easy way to someone to get a lot out and show it in a very big way, which is something that Psy did, and he made complete galleries on just this. So here's one of his collections. It's called the Brand Horse Collection. This is actually in New York City, and he has 12 large canvases like this staged all around this empty room. This is called Apollo and the. Alright, it was actually called Apollo and the Artist, and here's more and of the collection. And this one's actually the one in Munich, Germany. So here's a view of how the work is laid out across the room. So you got these 12 large canvases staged all around the room, and some of them look somewhat alike, like the first two on the right. Then you see different colors in the middle. You see a little bit of this subtractive color, and you see more of the grays and blacks instead of the reds and the yellows that catch your eye. So techniques that he used in canvases, he used a lot of placement, vertical and specifically implied depth and perspective, which perspective helped with that implied depth. Linear perspective developed in the Renaissance period, and yeah, it was used to depict depth. A large amount of his work involves subtractive color mixtures, which is like the blacks and the grays, like I said a little bit ago. It's another way to get out those moods, those feelings out for a viewer to understand and interpret in their own way what they're viewing. So then he later on moved to sculpting, and sculpting is created by forming something by carving, casting, and shaping, among some of the other techniques there are. So here's one of his sculptures. This is called By the Ionian Sea. It was later on in his life, near the end of his life, 1988. And so you can see that there's no clear face on it. You can see a body. So you can see this from all the way around. So some of the techniques you can see used in this. It's a freestanding sculpture. You can see it all the way around. There's not just one way that you have to view it, kind of like in a relief uh, sculpture where there's a background and you only see the one side. And then another thing that he involved himself a bit with was casting. So That's a substitution of a material to leave like a mold, which you saw a lot being created by mold. I mean by bronze sculptures. So he used carving mostly in this one. So he subtracted material, and then I'm not sure, but I think that last piece that's hanging out there was actually assembled on there because I could see that being quite tough if he carved that all the way around. But he was a very good artist, so he might have done that also. So the meaning behind his work was largely for provocation of thought. He wanted people to expand their minds to for the viewer to see these colors and collages. Um, he also showed a lot of landscapes in their elements such as nature, and he basically turned literature into art and these mythological figures into just expressionism. A lot of his work can be seen as an interaction with past and current culture, and some may view it as future culture too, as we see many changes in the past 70 years alone. Uh, so he's really just a voice within a painting, and has been a big, large influence in our modernist period.